Hello and welcome to another video on the NoSQL Mongo intro here. Today I'm going to make a quick recap of Mongo or NoSQL intro and then how we learn about MongoDB, how can we use it by setting up using with Docker, and then how you can get access to this particular database and how you can interact with the client as a way to get your hands dirty into the making, to the creating of this database. Cool. So, a word of NoSQL, which is something that Brian Hall, the creator of this course, which is something that I'm going to actually take a look. He described that, well, Brian Hall is this software engineer that has previously worked at Netflix, Reddit, Microsoft, and he is currently the PM of Snowflake, this database as a service. When the idea here is that by looking at this video, I'm going to actually take notes out of it. Okay, so with NoSQL, especially here, is because uh, this actually have this is doomy marketing because it's like pretty much like serverless when you have things like uh, people might think that this actually is you don't have a server, you don't have a computer, but actually you have a computer. That's one of the things here with this doomy marketing. And also there are some type of database that are NoSQL that allow you to do query to get to make things even more fussier. But in any case, in our case, we're gonna talk about exclusively uh, of document base. So the advantage of using this type of database is that it's a schemaless. It means you don't need to define the shape of the data, which is very easy to set up and running, and because this dynamic nature of JavaScript and Python, their mental models works well. But there is a caveat here, because this is a double source edge. You don't need to define your database schemas or anything like that up front. But if you, for example, you misspell something, the database will say, "Oh, you're creating a new field. Here you go." Again, this is one of the two double source, this double source as double edge sword. Sorry, but again, this is one of the advantage of this schemaless that you don't need to define the shape of that. However, as we're going to look with other type of or when you want to build more scalable application, how useful is to define is at least an schema, okay, or at least of the shape of the data using TypeScript. But again, this is what this type of database allows you to do, right? This is schemaless. Great for get things, everything up and running up front. The trade-off is that if you write, for example, or you misspell something, so the database will say, "Oh, you're creating a new field." There you got it. Okay. So you have to be very careful about what's going on in there, and the more discipline you can bring to your data structure, the more queryable is gonna be later. This is part of their. Uh, this is part of the. Mhm. This is part of the recommendation from Brian Hall. So the more discipline you can bring to your database, or the more discipline you can bring to your data structure, which is all what are the things that you want to store here. Okay, uh, very important. The more discipline you bring to your data structure, the more queryable is gonna be later. Okay, so this particular slot Okay, this particularly cabin, when I'm going to put things here, this particularly data structure is going to be used for this. Okay, so that's very, very interesting. And as usual, great power comes with great responsibility with data schemas. Okay, so when we now get our hands, when we actually do a hands-on approach with MongoDB, if you're a JavaScript developer, you probably are going to be very, very familiar with this, right? Uh, and I think it's safe to say that MongoDB is very popular among JavaScript developers and companies, and it has become a pretty reliable custodian, something that Brian Hall mentioned here. And to me, it's very, very interesting to use this particular word as a way to describe things here. Okay, which is very. This is part of the soft skills that developers actually need to do. Right? Okay, okay. So, if you're a developer here, this is probably very familiar to you. If you're a JavaScript developer, this type of database is very familiar to you, and it is safe to say that MongoDB has show, sorry, that has shown that it can be a pretty reliable custodian of data uh, with more than a decade on the road. Okay, they have some sort of rug patch, okay, like any project has, but they have had an, they haven't yeah they have had a real problem in a long time. So it is safe to say and recommend that MongoDB is a good database to whatever workload you throw at it. There are several things here: custodian and workload. Okay, so now, over the decade, MongoDB has been shown that it's a pretty good custodian of your data, and also that uh, is something that you can recommend out there to several companies to work with them, and it is very good at throwing, or is very good at whatever workload you throw at them. That's interesting. So here we're now talking about is the Docker or the instance that we're gonna make use as a way to now finally get access to this application. Okay, so Docker, after all, you can think of this as a little mini computer that is running in your OS, and now it allows us to run is this MongoDB, this service. Okay, so here we're giving is just a name for that. I don't think you can see that. No, you can. Okay, good. He was saying, hey, after you run the container, which you pull the image, uh, and then you run the container, which is you pull the instruction necessary, okay, these ingredients, and then you serve the dish, you create the container. Now I want you to detach this, uh, and I want you to see what's going on as you do all the things that you have to do. So make it interactive. Explore the inner port of this little computer, this container, and actually make it and match this port with our computer. Okay. Uh, and after that, I want you to remove anything to get that in a clean state. And this is the version that we're gonna use. Okay. So that's great. You can see a particularly pattern, especially if you are working with Postgres databases or for no SQL databases, that anytime you have or you run a Docker to have this particular little computer here, so by running this command, this is what you're saying, hey Docker, I want you to execute inside of this little computer, this container, uh, the uh, on the test Mongo. So I want you to now execute inside of this container, the test Mongo, and I want you to make it interactive. This command, this client, Mongo. Okay, and this is something that pretty much happened with all these type of databases. Okay, relational, uh, yeah, relational key value, document base, uh, yeah, relational key value, document base. What is the other? Yeah, relational key value, document base, white columnar, and graph. Okay, so this is after that, after we look and after we mention about the NoSQL and especially with the MongoDB, how this has been shown that this is a great custodian of your data over the past 10 years, and as well that is very good at throwing you whatever workload and they're going to do that great. Okay, so then we have is now this key concept for MongoDB or for this particular document based database. So we have document and collections. So documents, you can think of this quite the analogous of a record on a spreadsheet. Okay, if you can imagine for SQL, you have that. So this is a table, all right, with all of their column. So a document here represents a record, a row of that. And a collections is now, you can think of this, or the analogy is like tables, okay, which is now is a collection of documents. And the database here is now a collection of, is a group of collections, okay. So the thing is that it's all about organizing your data in a useful way. Okay. So how you can create now your first uh, database by calling is the use adoption. The adoption is the name of our database that we're gonna use as a way to create this pet name adoption here. Okay. So this is also describing that. And also, if you're familiar with, if you're a JavaScript developer, you now actually know how to work with MongoDB. It's pretty much the same, and even though it has some built-in application here, so MongoDB has some built-in Jesus has some built-in application here. For example, like Date Now, which provides you this. And then another useful thing is that once you create your database, which is this group of collection, now it is time to create your collection. How do you do that? Like just simply say, hey, DB, which is the reference, I want you to now create this, which is something that doesn't exist. That's one of the things that you have to be very careful about. This is a caveat of when you're writing this. And here you're telling, hey, I want you to now write this pet collection and insert with one value here, like so. So once it is done, it gives you now a response and say, hey, this is the acknowledge, which is true, telling you, hey, everything went well, and the ID that unlike other type of databases, MongoDB actually generate an ID for that. So you don't have to do that. Great. Awesome. Another important and helpful thing is if you want to know, okay, if you want help or what are the commands that you can do, you can take a look and say, hey, this is help, okay? And it tells you all of the operations that you can do in that collections or in that database. Great. Awesome. Awesome. Oh, oh, oh. Now it is time for us Ta-da. Now it is time for us to finally jump into that. Okay.
So we've now put one document into our collection. Let's get it out.
So query more Mongo here. Query Mongo here. No, please don't do that. We have been worked very well so far. Please don't. We have been worked very well so far. Please don't. It's like, okay, this is how you want to play things. Okay, this is how you want to play. No problem. Well, I got an issue here. This is most likely this is Windows 11 here. The issues with Windows 11. Anytime you want is to, for some reason, yeah, anytime you want for some reason is try to connect to something. It's like it throw you a lot of error here. It's like uh, here we go. Mobile hotspot here. There you go. Okay. But what about now? I didn't disconnect that. There you go. Okay. Cool. Yeah, I got a severe issues with my anyway. I got severe issues with my with my anyway network card. Anyway, okay, cool. So here we are. Da-da-da.
So if I say db dot, so we
Query MongoDB. That's right. So querying MongoDB. Okay.
we've now put one document into our.
Okay, that's right. We have now put one document into our collection. Now it's time to pull it up.
Our collection. Let's get it out.
Okay, so let's get it out.
So if I say db.pets and then I say find one, just like that, there's only one document in the database, so or in the collection, so it'll get that one, right? So I just gave it an empty query because I knew it's going to find something, and that something is going to be literally the only one there. So that's why that one ends up working. But here you can provide it with a query object. So in this particular case, I could say,
So now let me take a look at to open up now the Visual Studio Code. Okay. Okie dokie. So if you take a look now at the Docker here. So right now you're not able to see what I'm doing. So let me show you. I think exactly. Awesome. Which is here. That's right. There you got it. Now we are loading is the Docker instance here. And there we got it. Jagger tracing. This service is not running. And there you got it. Okay. So let me actually instead remove is the hello world. What is this? Okay, it's telling you all the servers that you don't love here for that. Okay, so because we are going to use is Mongo, where is that service? Is not running. Interesting. Where that server it is? Ah, there you got it. Okay, but this is our image, and I'm looking is more for the for Mongo. Can you help me to search here? Okay, that's interesting. Let me now stop is the Mongo here for a moment. It's another instance of Mongo here. And then I want this to actually get into that instance. Let's say, hey, Docker PS. You're gonna show me a lot of containers, which is not good. In fact, I want to get into that into there. It say, hey, there is no container for that. That's interesting. It's like he delete that. Okay. And now if I get in here, exactly. So here we are. So we get into that instance for that. Exactly. If I say db shows db. Correct. There is nothing here. So I need to create that again. Use adoption here. Switch to db adoption. And then I say, oh, I get it because I reset that. Interesting. Because I reset the computer, that's one of the reasons why it lost this data. I get it. I get it. So now it's time to pull it up. db.pets dot db.pets dot find one. It actually will work because we only have this one document there. So now you can pass is a query here. Okay, to indicate is what you want.
Type dog, and it would find the first item in the database that matched type dog, which
In here, now you say is, well, type dog. It will find is the first element that match with this property.
also work. But if I said type cat here, it's not going to find anything because we don't have any cats in our database yet. So find one is going to, but if I said type cat here, it's not going to find anything because we don't have any cats in our database yet. So find one is it's going to go into your database. It's going to try and find the first thing that it can find that matches that particular query, and then it will return that.
So this is our first command. Pretty simple. Okay, pretty simple. This is our first command, or to query data. So this command will find the first record or document, in this case, so the first document that match with type doc, right?
Even if
So
you have
far, so
100
good.
things in there, it's just going to ignore them. If you want to find all of them, you just do find, and this is going to give you
So to find
an
all of
iterator.
them,
We'll talk about iterators here in a second, but it's going to give you an iterator to iterate over all of those.
okay? So if you say find type docs, like that, you provide this as an object. As you can see, this is actually following is the same as JavaScript, like doc, okay? And then it will find all of them and it will return you an iterator. This will find all the all the occurrences is all the occurrence uh, in this will find all the occurrences and return an iterator. An iterator is a concept that, for example, in the case of JavaScript, is that is this function that allows you to, which is behind the scene, is using closure. Iterators and generators are using closure. And how this iterator is a function to say, hey, would it be nice to have a function that once you call it, it accesses the data in a particular position on the element. When you call that again, the next one, and the next one, and the next one. So that's what is doing is this iterator. And the way of how all of these things are being tracked without you telling explicitly is by using is closure. In the case of JavaScript.
In this particular case, there's only one to iterate over, so it doesn't do anything special about that. It just returns that to you. But notice here this underscore ID thing. This is the one that MongoDB creates for you. So that's its hash of what its ID is. This is guaranteed unique as well. Yeah, question.
Does it always find the same one when you use find one, or is it entirely random which one it returns?
He asked, does it always find the same one, or does it just find a random one? It will find the same one, but never depend on that behavior. That's a bad idea for you to just assume that it's always going to find the same one, because if someone starts inserting or updating or deleting things, it can change which one it's going to find. That's a bad. Does it always find the same one?
That's a very interesting question. Does it always find the same one? TLDR, never rely on that behavior. Never rely on that behavior.
Or does it just find a random one? It will find the same one, but never depend on that behavior. That's a bad idea for you to just assume that it's always going to find the same one, because if someone starts inserting or updating or deleting things, it can change which one it's going to find. I believe it's going to be the last one, it's going to be the first one created or last one modified, and I don't remember which one it is. Suffice to say, though, it's not a behavior you want to depend on.
Exactly. Never rely on that behavior. Does it always find one? Does it always find one? Find the same one? Or some random one? Never rely on that behavior until
So
there.
what I want to do right now is I want to insert a lot of items into our database so that we can start querying in interesting ways. So head back over to my course notes here. And you can see here I have this long JavaScript command here. What this is going to do, this is going to generate 10,000 records in our database.
Exactly. So what it's gonna do is gonna generate. Well, right now you're not able to see what I'm doing. Just this. Wait, what? Is this one? All right. So what you're gonna do is now insert many. Insert, do a massive insert. And here we're using is some of the built-in objects from length 10,000, and it's going to now add then a map with this Luna field fluid index. Okay, so this particular object will have is now the name, okay, as well as followed by the index. And if the index is mod 9, a type dog, cat, bird, and reptile. And if the index is 4, okay, the age, if the index is 20, 18 plus 1, breed, heaven is all of these different type of breeds, index, and index.index for this map that we receive here. Okay. So what you're gonna do here is to add this dog as a type and follow by the index for that. This is interesting. So you are here providing is a two-dimensional array, okay, where the first dimensional array it will contain all of this data, and then you will have is on that iteration is 1, okay, what you're gonna have is this collection. Okay, so you're gonna have what you're storing is this array followed by an index. Okay, this array followed by another index, this array followed by this index, and so on and so forth. Right? That's interesting. That's very, very, very interesting. Which is by taking a look at this, because well, this is what we are looking right now. Is this exactly? We are going to do is this. All right, that's great. That's cool. So let's get into it.
So, I mean, you can see here, it's just creating an array of size 10,000, and then it's creating an object that has various different names, various different types, ages, and breeds here. So if you come over here, paste that in here, hit enter, you'll see here that it gives you back a lot of object IDs because we just inserted 10,000 items into our database. We can talk a second about that insert many. I mean, this is not shouldn't be anything surprising to you, but you give it an array of JavaScript objects, and it inserts all of those as individual documents in our collection. So if we come back over here and say db.pets.count, you can see now we have 10,001 records in our database. We have 10,001 documents in our collection.
Exactly.
It's the correct terminology.
We have 10,001
As you can see, though,
documents in
for the
our
most part,
collection.
people use all this terminology interchangeably because they're all roughly the same idea. So now I wonder if I do db.pets.find1, you can see here. So I think it goes by created date. So I think it'll find the first item that matches it, and it will find the first one that was created. I think is the ordering on find1. but I'm not sure. It's ambiguous, and you never want to rely on ambiguous behavior in a that sounds like something that would crash your app like 2 months into it, and you wouldn't know why. So the first one here is
You don't want to never rely on that behavior, my friend. So never rely on that behavior. Never rely on ambiguous behavior. Otherwise, you might be running exactly. It's deterministic behavior, especially if you're in a database. So never rely or any application, any software. Never rely on ambiguous behavior. Otherwise, you might be running a bug for a couple months without even notice.
it's ambiguous, and you never want to rely on ambiguous behavior in a that sounds like something that would crash your app.
Mm-hmm. Or you might be running a bug for a month, or setting your app to crash in few months.
Like 2 months into it, and you wouldn't know why. So the first one here is find one. We saw this one already, find one, and we found Luna. But let's do some other kind of interesting queries here. So let's say we wanted to find one of index, 1337. This object here is it's your query object, right? You can use this to kind of filter in various different interesting ways. So this returned a cat that's a Havanese named Beethoven. It's interesting. You can put multiple things in here. So let's say we wanted to find a type dog, and that was of age 9, right? So it's going to match all of those, right? So this is age 9, and it's a dog. You can see it's index 8. So that one returned.
You're gonna match one, not all.
You might ask, why do we have this index thing? Well, we don't actually technically need this. In fact, I would even tell you not to do it. But we're going to be doing some indexing later, and I wanted to have something unique to index on. So that's why that index is there. And then let's do find. So let's say we wanted to find all dogs of age 9. So I'm just going to release that. So it's db.pets.find type dog age 9. And you can see here we got quite a few. In fact, I think this is 20. So we got 20 different dogs here of age 9. And it doesn't actually return all of those to you at once. So if I want to have multiple of these return, or I want to get more of them, you can see here it says type it for more. It stands for iterate. So if I type it, it's going to give me more and more and more and more and more. So right, it's going to start iterating all over these results. It only gives you 20 of them at a time because it assumes most people don't want 1,000 records all at once. If you wanted to find out how many of these actually match, you can come in here and say count. So if I do that, actually 278 pets match that query. So
iterator.
I need return you an iterator.
That's
out of our
interesting.
10,000 records in our database. Out of our 10,000 documents in our collection. This is going to be a pattern, and I'm very sorry about that. But that's good to know about IT. That's actually going to that's how you iterate all these over these various things. And you can change how many it gives to you at one time. You can change if it gives you 5 records at a time, or 5 documents, or 100 documents at a time. You can tell it to give you all of them. In fact, I'll show you how to do that here in just a second. Let's say that you wanted to get of type dog, and you only wanted to get like the first 40 records. Like imagine you're implementing search for like a pet adoption website. You could say, give me only the first 40 records, 40 documents in the collection here. Limit 40. Oh, that's count. Yeah, sorry, find. So now if I do IT again, notice it's actually done now. It's not actually asking me for, so you type IT for more. Now it's done. If I say IT, it says there's no cursor, which basically means you have all of them that you needed. Or to demonstrate that again, if I just say 5, notice it's only going to give me 5 objects in the database. Make sense? So that's what that limit is used for.
Let me get my hands dirty here, which is now finally is look at this. Okay, so here we're going to create about so here we're going to create about 10,000 records. Okay, so take a look at this. Since we are going to create, okay, so take a look at this. Since we are going to create yes, that's right. So take a look at this. Since we are going to create 10,000 documents for our pet, for our pet collection. And that's exactly what we're gonna do here. No, is this one. You think you're funny? Really? Okay. That's beautiful. Will ya? Will ya? Enough? Hey, oh my god. Oh my god. Stuff like. Anyway, get into Mongo. Now let's. Yes. Alright, then do that. You already create your 10,000 records. And if you want to now query one of them, for example, pets, you say pets.find. Do you store that? No, right? Okay, no problem. Find the one that have type, so you can follow me along here. It's this. So find type is the dog, for example. So fetch me the first that match with type dog. Exactly, it is telling you, and it's giving you all of them, followed by an iterator, which means that if you type IT for more, that you're gonna give you more and more and more. So the idea of this iterator is that be able to actually is store in a persistent way using a little backpack or in this closure, store the state at which you are at which segment you are when you're iterating through that collection. That makes a lot of sense. If you want to close that, oh no, I want to get it here. And if you say, hey, now give me is the find one, okay, that match with dog, then you got it, right? Or you can say, hey, that also give me the index of this number. It say, hey, I don't have that. That's interesting. That's interesting. Type dog. Okay. Or you can say is that find all of them that actually match with this criteria. And it say, no, I didn't find anything here. That's interesting. That's interesting. That's very, very interesting. And if you want to add pagination here, for example, you say, hey, you know what, give me if the first limit to 5, right? You say, hey, and giving you is the 5, and as you can see, it doesn't tell or it doesn't give you any iterator behind the scenes. So as a way to now take a note here, when it finds a lot of documents, more than 20, exactly. So more than 20, it will, yeah, when it finds a lot of document, more than 20, it will throw an iterator as a way to continue evaluating the next element on the collection or on the returned collection. Returned collection. Okay, that's great.
Now let's say I wanted to get 40, but I wanted to get them all at once. I don't want to have to wait. You can say dot to array like this. And now this will give me all 40 at the same time in an array. It's actually formats it a little bit nicer so it's easier to read. But that's what that to array does. So if you say, give me all 278 of those dogs that we were querying before, and you said to array, it will give you all 278, right? It won't give you a cursor back, it will give you everything. So that can be expensive, especially if you're sending down, to every single user 500 records in your, or 500 documents in your collection.
Completely. So if, for example, you want, okay, for example, you want to send, which is this, so for example, if you want to get all of the records at once with a proper format like an array, so you say is things like this. You say, hey, this is the reference of the database, the current reference, the name of the collection, as well as find all of them that match is this criteria, which is dog here, and dbpets.find, type dog here, and what's next, you say, hey, limit, so give me the limit of all of this of 40, and then transform them into an array. So these kind of operations can be quite expensive. This is a way of how you can do pagination as well. So as you like this, okay, exactly. For example, like this, okay. Okay. dbpet finds here. As you can see, this can be quite expensive if you are if you are handling requests. You're handling requests to fetch more than 40 elements. Exactly.
That could end up being a pretty expensive query. And I guess that kind of bears mentioning right now. A lot of the things that I'm telling you, a lot of the tips and tricks and all that kind of stuff is based on keeping your database healthy and cheap. It's because databases are almost always the most expensive part of your application. At least like at the companies I worked at, far and above our biggest cloud costs were interacting with our databases. And so a lot of these techniques are designed to keep your costs down. Like when I was working at Reddit, I think our hosting cost versus our database cost, I think our database cost was almost 10x our hosting costs. And that's not super atypical.
Okay.
So that's why I talk a lot about cost, a lot about reliability. Those are the kind of things that when you're thinking about databases, that's what you want to think about. And if you want
Cost
to
and
query by age and you
reliability.
want to find all of the senior about things,
Interesting.
at least like a thing
And I'm
down,
gonna write it down
to
there.
every single user, 500 records in your, or 500 documents in your collection, that could end up being a pretty expensive query.
Exactly. Why this? Okay.
And I guess that kind of bears mentioning right now.
Exactly. It is worthwhile to mention. It is worthwhile to mention here. Yeah, it is worthwhile to mention here. Yeah, it is worthwhile to mention here that a lot of the things, tricks and stuff like that, Brian Holt is mentioning. Okay.
A lot of the things that I'm telling you, a lot of the tips and tricks and all that kind of stuff is based on keeping your database healthy and cheap.
Okay. Is based on keeping your database healthy and cheap.
It's because databases are almost always the most expensive part of your application.
It's because database is almost always the most expensive part of your application.
At least like at the companies I worked at.
At least at the companies I have he have worked out. He have he have worked at
Far and above our biggest cloud.
far above our biggest cloud, far above it is biggest. It is biggest cloud cost
Costs were interacting with our database.
were interacting were interacting with the database,
And so a lot of these techniques are designed to.
and a lot of these techniques and And a lot of these techniques are designed exactly, and a lot of these techniques are designed to keep your cost down, to keep your cost down. This is where this value come from. Besides that, he mentioned about he describing how you can use this MongoDB, that kind of thing. This intangible asset and this side notes that actually summarize is a lot of these pain points on databases or on these particular things. And most of the times when people are called down, that's one of the reason why you have to be in the present to capture that. If you're not, it's very very hard for you to do that.
To keep your costs down. Like when I was working at Reddit, I think our hosting cost versus our database cost, I think our database cost was almost 10x our hosting cost.
So when Brian Hall was working at Reddit, he think or he, yeah, he said that the hosting cost he said that the hosting cost, or in this case he said that the database data database cost, okay, database cost was almost 10 times more. Yeah, I think was almost 10 times, 10x our hosting cost.
That's not super atypical.
And that's not super high typical.
So that's why I talk a lot about cost, a lot about reliability.
So cost and reliability, reliability.
But those are the kind of things that when you're thinking about databases, that's what you want to think about.
Cost and reliability is the kind of thing you wanna thought about databases. My God. Okay. This is more like cost and reliability. Reliability. Cost and reliability. Database. Database things to always consider. Holy moly, bro.
What if we want to query by age and we want to find all of the senior cats in our database? Right, so let's say cats older than 12.
Okay. Senior cats.
Well, you can say db.pets.count because we're just going to figure out how many of them we have. You're going to say type cat, and then you're going to say
And then you're gonna say
age, and then you're
age.
going to give age an object. Okay, and so you're going to have age is going to be greater than, so $GT, that means greater than, and we want it to be greater than 12. So you can actually kind of provide these like little sub-query objects to MongoDB, and it knows how to interpret that. So you can see here in our database we have 833 cats that are of age older than, like greater than, that's what the GT stands for, 12. If you want to do greater than or equal to, you just add an E on there, and lo and behold,
Greater
we
than
added a
that.
couple more, so now there's 1,100 if you include the age of 12. So there's a bunch of them. There's greater than or equal to, less than. So LT, LTE, less than or equal to. There's, if you really wanted to be verbose about something, EQ does equals, right? In reality, that's the same as just putting
age
12 there.
12.
But sometimes that is actually required that you'll need that. In fact, I think we'll need it later. If you wanted to find out how many cats are not age 12, you could put not equals. You can see here we have a lot of cats that are of type cat that are not 12 years old. And then you can also give arrays to MongoDB. So if I wanted to have, like, I don't know, maybe breeds was an array of breeds, right? So they could be a mix between a pit bull and a terrier or something like that. You could use in to query inside of arrays, or you can put not in to query if something is not an array. So there's a bunch of things you can do around arrays and objects. These are called query operators. I find myself using these quite a bit, specifically like the greater than or the less than, like that.
Exactly. So if we take a look now at the, for example, query your data, like where, with where clause, as a way to say, hey, I would like you to now find this particular data with a condition where. So, for example, if we want to find all of our cats that are, seniors, which means is that all of our cats that are seniors here, like type cat that are seniors, which means that age, you're going to provide an object where here you're going to use the $sign token to tell now MongoDB, hey, I want you to interpret this for this less, equal, or less than. I think this is the way how you do that. Yeah, less than. So less than, for example, 12. Okay. So give me all of those objects. Find me all of the objects that have this filter. So you can see here, it will actually throw. Interesting. Find type cat. I think there's something missing here. So for example, here, completely. It's because we miss is the last one. Now you get it. Okay. So now it will give you, your console is this this iterator, as a way to say, hey, you know what, all of this. But if you don't want to do that, okay, and then you say, oh, okay. But if you want to only count those elements, say, hey, count here by those cats that are less than 12 years old, it will give you that. Less than that, or you can say greater than that, okay, or greater and equal, like this as well. So all of these are known as, okay, so all of these are known as query operator. All of these are known as query operator. Okay. So what if you want to get, or what if you want to count all cats from a certain small cats that are less than 12 years old? all of this, all of this, all of this operators, all of this are known as query operators. In the case of, write it down here like so. Okay.
So, like, this is actually good. Let's do this one. If you do db.pets, let's say we want to find everything named Fido that's not a dog. So you can do db.pets.find, and you want to be of name Fido, and you want the type to be not equal to dog. Oh, I did find, but let's just do count. So you can see we have 834 pets that are named Fido that are not a dog.
Okay, so that'll be all for this video. Declaring Mongo. That'll be all for this video. Take care. Bye bye.
Let's talk about